Welcome to Truth, Money, and Freedom. Today is Saturday, March 16th, 2019. And sorry about the blackout, guys. I had to go out of town for 2 weeks, and that's why the channel's been kind of quiet. My grandmother had passed away, and out in California. I live in southwest Missouri. My dad lives up in Minnesota. It was his mother. So I drove up to Minnesota and flew out with my dad from Minnesota to California, and I've got some stories here. But it was Tulare, California, is where she lived. I kind of wanted to talk about this just a little bit. There's some interesting stuff here. Um, I mean, I can go into the travel stories, and I will in just a minute. But I want to talk about Tulare. Um, Tulare, I lived there back in 1992 and 93, about a 10-month period. And so I have some pretty good memories of what Tulare was like back in the early 90s. I had been there again in 2011, and then just came back from there. And I've seen a lot of changes in Tulare, California. Tulare, California, by the way, is in central California. It's in the San Joaquin Valley. And if those of you have never heard of Tulare before, it's by Visalia. It's about 8 miles south of Visalia. And actually, Tulare is sandwiched on Highway 99 between Bakersfield and Fresno. And that's kind of the general vicinity where it is. But it's a different place now. When we went to the hotel, we were told at the hotel, or I was told at the hotel, be sure to lock your doors on your car. I have never had anyone at a hotel tell me that before, except in Chicago. That's the only other place I have ever stayed at a hotel where they advised me to lock my doors. I do anyway, but for them to say that was kind of interesting. So, amidst all the traveling I did in California, and there was a lot of it, and I was all over the valley for a whole bunch of different reasons. It wasn't just the funeral and the burial. There was administrative stuff to take care of. If any of you have lost your folks or your grandparents before, you guys know what I'm talking about, with veterans, administration. My grandfather was a vet, and he was being buried. He died 6 years ago, so they were being buried together. He was cremated, and they kept the ashes. So we did have a military funeral, and then we had a regular funeral for my grandmother. So I got a chance to drive all over, not to mention all over town in Tulare and Visalia, and then Sequoia National Park, which is real close to where the 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 cemetery is for the vets up there. But what I noticed mainly was the homelessness. When I lived in Tulare, you didn't see people walking down the streets with shopping carts. It's assuming, they're full of things, but you can't see anything because they have tarps over what's in their shopping carts. Equally, some people have bikes, and they have the little basket trailers, behind their bikes, also, filled with things. I saw people walking down the street with blankets under their arms. So it was prolific. It was just kind of, you almost saw them like every half an hour you saw someone doing that. And then another thing too, when we got out there, then you get obituaries from the paper. So my dad, sent me on a quest, to go get the Visalia and Tulare papers because that's where the obituaries were. And I had a hard time finding any newspapers. I was going to convenience stores, gas stations, and grocery stores. And ultimately, it was a upper class grocery store where I was able to get the papers. And I did find one, too, in Target. So the Target store in Tulare. Now, why that's amazing to me is because down here in Missouri, you get papers everywhere. If you need a newspaper, you can pick it up virtually anywhere. Any gas station, any convenience store. I mean, anywhere you go, basically. Even many restaurants in southwest Missouri carry the newspapers as well. But I did ask them because I actually went to 8 locations that did not have the paper that should have had the paper. And each one of them told me the same thing. Every one of them. We don't carry papers here anymore because people steal them. So people are stealing newspapers, and it doesn't matter where you're at. Now, when I purchased at the upper scale grocery store, they had them behind the counter. You had to ask for them. And at Target, they did have them in general public area there where you could pick them up, but it was somewhat recessed into the store. So you had to go into the store to go get the paper. So you couldn't just go in the doors and, pick up a paper and go out the doors again or whatever. But so I can only theorize. And by the way, I'm literally theorizing. I don't know what's going on there. I don't live there anymore. I have relatives there, but they don't know what's going on either. But they get papers delivered, so they don't have to go out and get them. And they do say they try, make sure they get their paper right away in the morning because people will take them. I'm thinking because of the homeless population that's in Tulare right now, that basically, newspapers are valuable to them for insulation and, other things, I imagine. Stuffing, crumpling up the paper, paper by paper, sheet by sheet, and stuffing them in their jackets during the winter, to stay warm or what have you. I think that may be a big part of what's going on out there, but it was interesting. So with the homeless people just going up and down the streets, and then the papers, the only other thing I would say is, everything costs more there. Everything from just getting a soda to filling up your car with gas. We got to rent a car, and it's about $1.50 more a gallon in California than it is where I live near Springfield, Missouri. So I found that kind of interesting too. I knew their gas was higher. I didn't know it was that much higher, but it literally is. So now on the travels there, and I'm showing this page here for Tulare, California, um, some statistics and everything. I was kind of curious about the median home values. That's what I was interested in. And the home values, they say 92,900 and 2,000. I really wish they would show them in 2008 because I think they were significantly higher than that, maybe about 250,000 for the average home value in Tulare. So it never really quite recovered there. But if we did adjacent towns like Visalia, I think that we'd find the numbers quite different. I think we have crime and homelessness and probably a lot of welfare recipients basically moving into Tulare. So I think that's probably what's going on there. I'm taking a guess, and once again, I do have relatives that live there, but their guess is as good as mine. They don't really know what's going on either, but they do say that the Visalia is developing and Tulare is not. So it seems like resources are leaving Tulare maybe and going to other towns. Not exactly sure why. Homelessness may be a part of it, but I think that may be an effect, not necessarily a cause. But I got harassed by the TSA when I traveled to California. I always do. In Minneapolis, TSA. Here's what I do, gang. When I go traveling, and I don't fly very often because I really do hate the TSA, what I generally do is I opt out of the body scanner. And that way they just give me a pat down. And because I always get randomly selected for a pat down anyway, which happened on this trip in almost every stop. But it wasn't, no, I apologize, not Minneapolis, in Phoenix, where our connection was. They actually pulled my pants down. And I'll tell you why. They forced me to go through the naked body scanner because they said no one was available for a pat down. So I go through the naked body, or whatever background scatter radiation machine, I call it the naked body scanner. And it finds there's metal by my groin and on my left shoulder. So, well, by the groin had to be the zipper, for my actual pants. Left shoulder, no idea where they got that from. I got no metal on, my body whatsoever, not even fillings. I've got the ceramic fillings in my teeth. So, but at any rate, so I have to sit and wait for about 15 minutes for a pat down, for someone to show up for a pat down. And so I put my arms up, and he starts patting me down at the top and everything. He gets down to my waist and literally pulled down my pants. He took the back of his hands and was rubbing across my groin, literally. And then when he was done doing that, he literally put his hands inside my pants that were down at my knees at that point. And keep in mind, this happened in front of everyone. Now, it's not like they dropped my boxers. They didn't do that. But my pants were at my knees. and he put his hands down where the zipper is and was feeling around that area. And and of course, I felt my shoulder, nice and good, make sure there was no metal there. Um, so at any rate, and then he was done. He says, "Okay, you can go." And I said, "Well, I'm kind of curious now. Um, you force people to go through this naked body scanner all the time. Don't you pick up zippers all the time? Isn't that constant? Isn't?" He goes, "No, it's not supposed to pick up zippers." I said, "What about my left shoulder?" He goes, "I don't know." And he goes, "Frankly, I don't even really know what you're talking about." He says, "I came here to do the pat down." And he says, "And I came from another terminal." So, um, so at any rate, it's just a pain to fly anymore with the TSA. And humiliation, demoralization is probably the name of the game. It seems to be, basically a psychological thing they're actually trying to implement with the TSA. And I know a lot of people go through problems with the TSA, and I'm not the only one, but I am a libertarian, and I have been very vocal in the past with representatives and senators, very vocal, and on many different levels too, because I've actually contacted them as a pro-life advocate as well. So I'm kind of well known in that arena. But I just really hate to travel anymore because it's always, always, always a problem to get through the airports. So I try to avoid flying at all costs. But my dad is handicapped and needed help traveling. So I did it for my dad, like many people would do for their parents. Just my dad has a prosthetic leg and he is elderly. So I did it to help him. I love my dad. I would do anything for my dad. And his mother passed away, and it was stressful enough for him. It was my grandmother too, but we do things for our family. Sometimes we say we'll never do again, never do it, and then your family needs something and you do it. And that's kind of what happened with me here with this situation. But and I didn't mean to, go off on TSA and Tulare, California or anything. I just kind of want to let you guys know where I was at, kind of let you know a little bit more about my experiences on that vacation, if you will. It wasn't really a vacation. We got a lot of stuff done during that time. It was a very productive time, and a lot of things got taken care of. With worldly belongings, with life insurance policies, with veterans benefits, Social Security. Needed to be informed. Death certificates needed to go out. That sort of thing when someone passes away. So that's the kind of stuff we did work on. But I am back, and we'll be producing more podcasts. And I'm sorry about the outage on this, and I didn't warn anyone that I'd be gone for nearly 2 weeks. But I am back, and we'll get back to podcasts. And I want to thank you for taking a few minutes just to listen to me rant here and talk a little bit about my experience in California and traveling, but also to any of the other podcasts that we produce. We're Truth, Money, and Freedom. We have a Discord channel, and we have a link to it down below in the description. I'll also link up this Tulare, California page that I have up here right now. But we talk about these kinds of things all the time, and if you're interested in the conversation, please join us. We have a voice chat, we have a text chat, so we have a lot of very smart people smarter than me in there. And basically, if you wanted to chat more about the subjects that we're talking about here today, and by the way, we have lots and lots of podcasts that we have planned coming up with lots more people involved in the podcasts as well. So basically, stay tuned and you'll be seeing these come up. But thanks again for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.